Okay, determine the area of the shaded region. So in order for us to find out the area of only what is shaded, that means we need to find the area of the whole thing, the area of the white region, and then subtract them. So what we need to do is first find out what shape this is. So what shape is this? Trapezoid. And in order for us to find the area of a trapezoid, you need the formula A equals half of base 1 plus base 2 times the height. So what would be base 1? It's 40. Could it be 30? Yeah, it could be 30. It doesn't matter which one is base 1, as long as you know that the bases are parallel to each other. So base 1 is 40. What's base 2? So it's going to be 30. And then what is the height? 15. So everything was given to you right there. So let's go ahead and solve this. So we have half. 40 plus 30 is 70. Times 15. So I'm going to go ahead and just actually multiply that. So 70 times 15, that's going to give you 0, 35, 0, and 7. Oops, I forgot the 0. So that's going to be 1,010. So we're going to do half of 1,050, sorry. So what would that be? 525. Okay, so that's the area of the whole thing. So now we have to go ahead and find the area of what's not shaded. So what is the base and the height for that? 20 and 5. Where'd you get 5 from? Yes. That's right. It does have those tick marks, those math graffiti. So then it's going to be 20 times 5. And that's going to give us what? 100. So now all we have to do is subtract 100 from 525. So my answer is going to be 425. So the area of the shape is going to be, or the shaded region, 425 square millimeters. Any questions on that? Okay, now number 2 was the same thing we did yesterday. So it says determine the value of x for the right triangle. So they give us 39. And then x, so what would this number be? 90. Remember that symbol or that math graffiti represents a 90-degree angle. So in order for me to solve for x, what would I need to do?
Do 90 plus 39 minus 180.
So 90 plus 39, so that's going to be 129 plus x equals 180. So in order to find what x is, I am going to subtract 129, which is 51. So x is equal to 51. And if you notice, I did an equation down here. And wouldn't I just have to subtract 129 from both sides, and that gives me the value of x? When we were solving equations, didn't we do that? Okay. So then basically, when you're given an equation, it's actually doing what we did here. Any questions on that one? Okay, so if you notice here, I have 2 prisms. One is a triangular prism, and another one is a rectangular prism. And that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, when we're talking about volume, because that's what we're going to be talking about today, It's basically what you could fill a 3D shape with. Okay, so anytime they say fill up or fill, then that's what you're doing. You're looking for volume. Now, if you notice on the rectangular prism here, they have only the bottom shaded in different colors. Okay, and then they have the height. So if you notice here on this shape, you have whatever is filled up on the bottom, and then how many layers there is of the same amount. So basically, the bottom that's filled up means that's the area of the base. You guys remember that we had to shade in the bases for surface area? Well, you're doing the same thing. But now we only need the area of one of the bases. So because it's a prism, it's going to have two. So you only need area of this. Okay, that'll be the area of the shape, which is going to be the capital B. And then you need the height, and the height means the layers. So the layers would always be, or the height will always be between the two bases. So once you identify the bases and shade them in, then whatever is between the two bases is going to be your height. So always remember that. So if you noticed here, we're going to have the area of the base here. So it's going to be 5 times 4. Okay, so when you see the formula, it's going to put A. When you see the formula, it's going to have a capital B and the height. Well, this capital B actually represents the length or the base and the height. But this is the base and the height of the base. There's too many words too many meanings for the word base. Okay, base and height. Then you have the height. So base and height is basically the length and the width. So the length would be 5, the width would be 4, and then the height, and that's what I mean by between the two bases, the height is going to be 3. So all you have to do is do 5 times 4, which is 20, times 3, and that's going to give you 60. So the volume of this is 60. Okay, and whenever we do volume, because it's what's filling in, even though you're filling it in, it's still going to be a 3D shape, right? So then your units will be cubed units. When you say here cubic feet, they're talking about volume. When they say cubic inches, they're talking about volume. Okay, so every time you hear cubic, then know that you have to find the area of the base and the height. So the same thing with the triangular prism. It's the same thing. You're still looking at the base. So in this case, I have the base and the height. So if you notice, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the base. The height is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's the area of the base. And what's in between? How many layers do we have between the two bases? 1, 2, 3. So that's going to be 3. So all you have to do is remember, volume is going to be capital B times H. So this is going to be the base. That's going to be half of the base and height, because it is a triangle, right? Times the height. Don't confuse the height of the base with the height of the prism. And that's what a lot of students get confused about. So all you have to do is 4 times 6. So we're going to take half of 4 and 6. And then times 3. So this would be half of 24 is 12 times 3. That's going to give you 36. And that's basically what you're doing. That's all you're doing. Now, you could always just do 4 times 6 is 24 times 3 is going to give you 72. Divided by 2 is going to give you 36. You could do that the same way too. Just remember that you need 3 dimensions in order to solve for volume. Okay, and this was just like kind of a preview. So I'm going to go ahead and take your notes. You're going to be putting this in your composition book. So go ahead and take it out. And we'll start with the definition. Okay, so here it says volume of a prism. So volume is the area of the base. So volume is the amount a space occupied by 3D figure and is measured in cubic units. So like I said, V equals base, capital B, times height. So basically, when you're looking at capital B, you are either looking if it's a rectangular prism, you are looking as a capital B to equal length and width. And we're going to go with length and width because then you get confused. If it was a triangular prism, that's going to be half of the base and height of the triangle. Please don't confuse the two. Okay, and once you start practicing, you'll see which one is what. But I'm going to show you a trick on how to do that too. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the rectangular prism. On your paper, you have one on top, one on the bottom. So remember, all this means is the capital B is going to be length times width, and then times the height. So if you notice, the first one has already your base shaded in. Okay, so remember, we could shade in the top two. So that's your two bases. But remember, we only need the area of one base, and then the height is going to be that. So we're going to do, that's your height, and this is your length, and this is your width. So then all we have to do is multiply them. So V equals capital B and H. Capital B is going to be 3 times 2 times 6. 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 times 6 is 36. So the volume of this is going to equal to 36 cubic centimeters. Okay, on this next one, what is the base? The sides, the top, the bottom, the sides, okay? We could do the sides. And it really doesn't matter on the rectangular prism. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and write the formula. V equals capital B times H. B times H is going to be 2 times 5 because, that's 5, right? Because that's what you picked. You picked that as your base. And then what's between the two bases is going to be 10. So 2 times 5 is 10, and 10 times 10 is 100. So that means this is going to be 100 cubic centimeters. Simple, right? So basically, once you identify what's your length, what's your width, and what's your height, all you're doing is multiplying them. Now, would it have been different if I picked this as my base?
Yeah.
It would? The answer would be different? No, because all I would do is going to be 2 times 10, right, times 5, okay? So 2 times 10 is 20, times 5 is going to give you 100. So it doesn't matter on rectangular prisms. It doesn't matter which ones you think the bases are. Okay, any questions? Okay, so let's go ahead and do the other one, which is the triangular prism. Okay, again, here we have V equals capital B times H. But remember, capital B in this case is going to be what? V equals half of the base and height times the height. So let's go ahead and solve it. Now, here they told you the base is the bottom part, and then you have the base on the top too. But we only need the area of 1. So all we have to do is go ahead and multiply. So half, the base would be, what? 5. And then the height is, well, remember, we're talking about that base. So it's 5 times 6, right? Okay, and then you have the 4. And remember, I told you the height, this h is going to be whatever's between the bases. Whatever's between the bases. So now all we have to do is multiply half of 30, then times 4. So what's half of 30? 15 times 4. So that means this is 60 cubic centimeters. Now here's a trick that I told you that you could do. You could just go ahead and multiply. So if you do 4 times 5 times 6, so 4 times 5 is 20, times 6, that's 120, and then if you divide that by 2, that's 60. So you could do that the same. Any questions? Okay, so let's do the next one. So the next one, they didn't identify the bases. So what are the bases here? Is it the bottom part, the side, or the ones in front and back? It's triangular prism, so that means the base is gonna be a what? A triangle, a triangle. So that means this is your base. Okay, the one in the back is your base also. Okay, so that means that the capital B is going to be what? There's a distractor there. So half of, what's the base and height of the base? 4 and what? It's 4 and 3. 4 and 3. And what's the height of the prism? 7. Because remember, that's between the two bases, isn't it? So that's times 7. So what is 5? That's extra information. It's a distractor. They put it there to trick you. Don't fall for it. So remember I told you you could multiply all of them and divide by 2? Well, let's do that. So what's half? 4 times 12. 4 times 12. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 7 is going to be, what? 84. And half of 84 is going to be 42. And that's going to be 42 cubic inches. Don't fall for those distractors. They always put them there for you. So here is your assignment. Okay, it's got some of them that have them already filled in. So if you want, you could actually count all the cubes, and that gives you the amount of the volume, because that's what it is. It's filling it up with cubes. Any 3D shape that's filled up with cubes. Okay, so the first one, they gave you the cubes, so you could count. The second one, they just did the length and the width, and then the height of the prism. Then the third one doesn't give you which ones are the bases. But if this is a triangular prism, and it does tell you there, tells you triangular prism right here, so then that means what is your base? Triangles. Don't forget that, triangles. Okay, and then we have more prisms, and then another triangular prism. So make sure you're working on them. There's 6 of them. do as many as you can and then turn it in before you leave. You don't have homework tonight. So turn it in before you leave. Good? Okay, then get started. Remember, you could always ask me questions if you have any problems.